Alright, you guys saw the title, you guys saw the thumbnail, you know what this video is going to be. It's going to be a little story of how I overcame a fear, and hopefully, to people who were much like me before, could take inspiration from this and gain some confidence themselves. This is a story of how I overcame public speaking. So before I get into the big old script thing on this video, which I never really usually do, I want to assure you guys that the gaming stuff is the heart of this channel. This kind of content, I just have a few different, like 3 or 4 ideas I wanted to sprinkle in here around the summertime, now that I actually can and have the ability to do so. And put some comments down if you guys want me to do anything else funny in the future like this. I'm down for it. All cool. And without further ado, let's go on with the video. A little bit of context to how I came from this to singing in front of a stage of nearly 600 people is every year my school hosts this 1-week event called the Charity Week, where our school finds and donates to an organization to give money to them, like sheltered animals or people who don't have access to food at home. It's really quite a sweet thing for us to give back to our community and whatnot like that. But last year it was a animal organization. This year was helping people who don't have enough food at home. And to the people who donate to it, you get access to the Charity Week games and shows, where our school puts together and hosts a various amount of little things and like gags to kind of waste your time with. To a person who doesn't really care much about school, you buy a ticket, you essentially have a free week of school. That's kind of just the context of that. So the first 2 years of my schooling, I didn't actually want to attend this at all because I wanted to focus more on, you know, getting the books down, getting the education correct, getting all A's, all that stuff. But I did attend one of the events in my freshman year, and I attended it in junior and senior year, which is the story now that we're talking about. But one of these things interested me, and that was called Mr. Blank. Blank being the name of the town I live in, because I'm not telling you where I live. But think of it something like a male pageant show kind of thing, where you have to show up with your best dressed outfit, kind of like a beach outfit, beach attire, like, you know, Hawaiian shirts and stuff like that, which if you know me for one thing, it's probably the fact that I wear too many of those. And at the very end, the thing that caught my interest the most out of all of this was the ability to choose and perform a show of your choice. You can entirely script and make an event to host in front of the school. And in my case, it was nearly 600 other people that I go to school with on a daily basis. So it's pretty of a grand idea to decide to do that. I went in the freshman year and the junior year to this Mr. Blank event. And every time I left that event, those 2 times I went, it left a little bit of an impact on how I would perceive, you know, people going on stage and whatnot like that. Freshman year, there was a guy who just wore a Bowser onesie and sang Peaches while actually playing it on the piano live in front of a stage, which it's goofy, but it's cool how you can see how people, you know, choose these acts that they want to play. And in the junior year, there was a kid actually doing a calculus equation on a smartboard, and a guy who sang a rendition of My Way by Frank Sinatra. These kind of just left a outstanding impact on how I perceived going up on stage and like communicating with people at all. That afternoon in the junior year when I left the event, a couple people stopped me on my way home, and they're like, "Hey, Block." I'm not gonna say my name because you don't need to know that yet. And they said, "Why didn't you do this? You're always on the creative side of things like that." And I was kind of shocked that people would no less go out of the way to talk to me at that point in time, because I was very shy at that time of my life. But they would ask me why I didn't do this event, and it kind of just made me think, why don't I try? Because every single year had a bit of a challenge to it. And I thought a fun little challenge to senior year would be taking it on head first by going out with something big, doing something crazy that I would not think I'd be able to do. So I went home, told my parents about it. They were shocked that I would want to do an event like this. And then I wasted the summer playing Ultra Kill and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. So kind of the duality of the situation, but I'll let you be the judge of that. The fall of the 2025 school year hit, and I had not prepped at all. I knew that it was going to happen at the end of the school year, and I knew I had to start prepping for things and whatnot. So I did have a bit of experience playing the alto saxophone for 4 years of my schoolhood, I guess you'd call that. I don't really know. But as it came to training the vocals, part of, you know, singing songs and doing things like that, I needed help. And this is where another person in the story comes into play. My dad had a friend who had a person who could, you know, guy knows a guy knows a guy kind of thing, who was able to assist me in this process. For privacy of this individual, I'm not going to be name dropping because I don't think they'd be appreciative of that. But for the person who is potentially watching this, you know who you were. That was awesome. And over like the course of 8 months, a greater half of a year in realistic like viewing and things, we learned how to kind of like control vocals, whether it was blowing a straw at some water to see how the water like reacted to it, which could help like the vibration of your voice as you're singing high pitched in your vibrato, to just kind of making sure that like, you know, standing up straight, breathing properly, that kind of thing. And that was super helpful to try and kind of like harness the screechy chaoticness that I can get to in some of my videos. I'm sure I have an example. I'll try and play a couple now.
What does a Cobra Cola do? That's probably what happens if you shoot somebody.
I don't really know how many actual video examples I have of it. Who knows? The song that I chose was Borderline by Tame Impala, the Slow Rush album that he made, because that's my favorite artist at this time of making this video. And I saw him live once. It was the best day of my experience of my life, whatever, aside from the fact that I was horribly sick. Which I thought was kind of like a easy enough experience to harness that kind of voice. Now, little did I know at the time, what are you doing here? What? Throughout vocal practices with the person and the individual that I'm not listing the name of, I also saw a class being hosted at a local community college that was more on the side of public speaking and just being in a group with people kind of practicing your voice. And as cliche as it sounds, it was very helpful. If you don't know, first of all, community colleges are kind of like this mixed nuts of like the aisle of snack foods for education. You're either going to find a lot of people your age or people who are over 40, 50, 60 years old. And lucky or unlucky to me, the class that I was in, that was public speaking, had a majority of people who are at least over their age of 40s. So I already knew going into it, I would never really see these people again. And with that kind of mindset, I was, over the course of this month-long like class, I kind of learned to just kind of let loose as a person and really kind of go into the crazy like side of personalities and things like that. As you can see with my more modern content that I make, I'm able to kind of more lean into the insanity of things. So that was kind of cool. I guess I need to also explain before I get into the rest of the details of this. You know, you need to have like a karaoke version of your song, and you just, I thought personally I had to accompany it with something. So I got into a call with a friend who I can actually say, Andrew Biskiner. He has a Spotify and all that stuff, does a really cool instrumental stuff. And I talked to him, and I was like, hey, can you help me out with making a instrumental for this Borderline thing? And over the course of about a week, late April, around that time, we made a instrumental for the song. Which I'm actually pleased to say, when I get to it, there's going to be a real official release of my cover of Borderline on streaming services, as long as that works with the legal teams with that kind of stuff. When I make the actual music video for it, probably at the end of summer, so. But for the accompaniment for the actual performance, I made a music video doing clips of the downtown and whatnot. Because the event was called Mr. Blank, I just chose videos and pictures of like someone walking downtown, driving spots, things like that. That just kind of encapsulated where we all like grew up and lived, which I thought was kind of a nifty little cool thing to do. And about a week before this event, all of us boys from the freshman, junior, senior, sophomore, that's in there, I messed up the speech a little bit on that one. We're gathered into a gymnasium room, and we were explained how this would work. How it would start off with the best dressed and interview section, followed by the beach section, followed by your actual talent, which at the time I didn't know. I kind of forgot and took that out of my mind what I'd actually have to do for that. So I was asked the question on an actual stage at the event, if I was a utensil, which one would I be? I said a spork. Yeah. And for the beach section, I played the song The Black Keys' Lonely Boy instrumental as I kind of like spun a pool noodle around in my hand. it's alright. Like, I dropped it. It ended up being kind of funny because I messed it up a little, but you know, it was fun. It was a good little joke, a little laugh. Dude. But before I get into the actual performance of how I acted on stage with the song thing, I think it's about time to really explain the downfall of how this actually went. The rehearsal. After school around like 2 to 7 p.m., that is what like the time frame we had before the event, there was an open rehearsal thing to try and practice your act. And, you know, you'd be able to go down to the stage where you'd actually perform that night and be able to act out what you're going to do before you actually were to do it. One small issue with the skills on the stage that you're performing was that due to the like amount of moving compartments of my like project, being the background track, the visuals, all that stuff, I wasn't allowed on the stage. I was not allowed to see or feel how the microphone works. They're heavier than you'd like to think they are. It's kind of funny, but like microphones are a lot more heavy than you think. And I didn't actually get to hear or see what my visual representation would look like on that stage. So I was kind of just forced to sing out in the lobby. And a funny thing about this school is that the water ain't really the best thing to drink. I wouldn't recommend drinking school water. And when you wake up at 5 in the morning and you go till 7 p.m. to do an event without any water, you kind of struggle hitting your falsetto for a voice. And the very performance of this video thing was also super quiet, which if you listen to the original track, you know that the vocals are just as important as the instrumental. So having one thing louder with a microphone than the actual performance on a real stage where they do plays, where it should have been more even like here maybe, it makes it a little bit difficult to do the performance. Regardless of this, I think it went well. It was fun. It was a good time, you know, acting on the stage there, doing borderline, singing that. It was a fun time, and you know, I got to wear the funny red sequins jacket, which was also just pretty fun in general.
Music is amazing. It's fire.
Again, an extremely special thanks to my vocal trainer and Andrew Biskiner for helping me with the vocal track. When I get to it, I'm going to record a real music video and get a official version for his Spotify page. That'll be sometime at the end of summer. Hopefully, probably. I have a lot of big things I'm looking forward to doing this summer, so I've been Block, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.